Woo! Intro! Intro! Woo! It's an intro! Intro! Hey everyone, so I was able to finally upgrade my mic and finally post this video. It took me forever because I've been extremely busy with work and personal stuff, but I was able to finally upload this, I guess. We'll see if my second video is a little bit better than my first. If anyone has any suggestions on what I should review next, by the way, please let me know. The movie I'm reviewing this time is called Before I Wake, which is a horror film that came out in 2016. It was written and directed by Mike Flanagan, who, by the way, wrote and directed The Haunting of Hill House, The Fall of the House of Usher, and Midnight Mass, which are some of my favorite shows. Before I get into the story of Before I Wake, as well as my opinions, I highly recommend that you watch the movie for yourself if you haven't already. Keep in mind that the beginning is a bit slow, but it has a unique story. The film starts off with our main protagonist, Cody Morgan, who's 8 years old. He's sleeping in his room as a man is standing at the door with a handgun. He looks nervous, and we hear some sort of monstrous screech coming from outside the room. The man shuts the door behind him and tells Cody he's sorry as he's about to shoot him, but is interrupted by an unseen creature. He fires one shot at the monster, which wakes Cody up. Cody looks at the man scared and confused as the man drops the gun and begins to break down. We are now introduced to Jesse and Mark Hobson, a married couple that are seemingly at a foster care center. They are shown Cody's information, and we learn Cody's birth mom died when he was 3, and he was placed with a previous couple that was not apparently a good fit for him, along with another failed attempt with a second couple. The woman at the foster care center tells Jesse and Mark that Cody's situation hasn't turned him into a victim. The couple decide to adopt Cody and bring him home. Before Cody gets there, we see Jesse and Mark fixing up their house, specifically the bathroom. Mark installs a curtain rod as well as handlebars for the bathtub. We see a photo of a young boy, probably around the same age as Cody, hung on the wall, which is removed along with the other photos. Now, only one photo remains, which Jesse says to leave it. The couple's expression seems sad, so it seems that they maybe lost their son. The setting now changes to Jesse at a group therapy session. She tells the therapist about how they adopted Cody. The therapist asks her how she's been feeling these days, and she responds with saying how she can't sleep at night even with the medication. So he responds to her stating that insomnia is common, that the word somnia is Latin for dreams, and insomnia means no dreams. And what else is a child but our dreams? He goes on to ask about how she's handling her numbness, which she says she's not sure about, but what she does know is that the color hasn't returned to the world just yet. So her therapist asks where Mark is, and she explains that everyone processes grief differently. So if it wasn't clear yet, we can now assume that they're processing the death of their child. She goes on to specify that the group sessions are the only time that she feels awake. That night, Jessie can't sleep and gets up and walks to the bathroom that Mark had fixed up. She turns the lights on and crouches down in front of the tub, checking to see if the handlebars are sturdy. We see quick flashbacks of her son struggling to get up out of the tub, lacking any handrails. She jumps back and seems to be trying to process the flashbacks that she's having. She then gets up and leaves. The next day, we see CPS bring Cody to Jesse and Mark's house. They come out to greet Cody and notice how polite and friendly he is. Mark shows Cody his new Kinect, which, by the way, why did they stop making it? I loved playing the Kinect, especially Dance Central 2, but I guess they aren't making those anymore. Anyway, Cody notices the picture of the couple with their previous child hung on the wall. They then show him to his room, and he's taking a liking to the curtains with butterfly decorations on it, and we learn that he collects butterflies. That night they took him in for bed, which was adorable. After they leave, Cody sneaks out of bed and pulls out his box, which was hidden underneath it. He pulls out a can of soda and drinks while reading through his butterfly book. The next day after his first day of school, he's shown that evening in the tub looking at the handlebars. We realize Jessie is right outside the door asking if Cody's okay. She seems overly worried. We can see Jessie putting away Cody's laundry and finds his box under the bed. She finds the butterfly book along with his energy drinks and caffeine pills. She brings it up later that night while tucking Cody in. He explains that he doesn't like to sleep because of the canker man. This monster only comes out when he's asleep and eats people, like his mom. So Jessie tells him that when she was little, she thought a witch was scratching her window. But after she confronted it, she realized it was just a tree and the witch never came back. But Cody argues the canker man never leaves and is always with him. Later that night, the couple are watching TV in the living room and notice butterflies appearing out of nowhere. One of them bites Jessie's finger, and she notices their patio door is open. We get a quick glimpse at a creepy silhouette in the doorway behind Jessie as she closes the doors. Suddenly, all the butterflies disappear, leaving the couple confused. That night, Jessie can't sleep and goes to the kitchen for a glass of water, and we notice another silhouette behind her down the hall. She takes some medication and senses something behind her, and as she turns, the person disappears. Then, as she turns back to the sink, the cabinet door slams shut. She jumps and then hears a noise coming from the living room. She squints, seeing something in the shadows, as we see a boy's head slowly emerge into the dim lighting. She drops her glass, and suddenly the boy is gone, and we then see a child run upstairs. She follows up the stairs and checks the bathroom, but doesn't see anything. She then checks on Cody, but he's asleep. The next day, she tells her therapist she thinks that she saw Sean last night, which is the boy that the couple had lost. She said that she understands that it's common to see dead loved ones, but this was different, that Sean was angry with her for replacing him with Cody. Then we learn that Jessie didn't want to sell their current home when Mark did, because she felt Sean was still in the house. So that would make sense then, why they haven't moved out of this home by now, with everything they've gone through. Keep in mind, based on their conversation, it seems the therapist reminded her that she's seen Sean in her home prior to this as well, so it's nothing new. On top of that, no matter how real it feels, the therapist reminds her that we can achieve REM sleep when we're awake as well, which is called a waking dream. And that sometimes the only way we can keep the ghosts of our loved ones alive is through our own subconsciousness, creating these hallucinations. Jessie needs to figure out what her own dreams mean and what she is trying to say to herself. Later on, Cody asks about who the boy is in the couple's old family photo on the wall of the house, which is Sean. This is when Cody also learns that Sean passed away just like Cody's mom. Cody mentions that he doesn't remember her and asks how Sean went to heaven. Jesus, this movie is so sad. Anyway, Jessie tells him that they wish Sean hadn't died, just like Cody's mom. After Cody goes to bed, the couple are watching TV, and suddenly Sean appears out of thin air along with a blue butterfly. Jessie and Mark realize that they can physically hug Sean, but suddenly Cody wakes up and Sean disappears. Cody comes downstairs from his room to grab a soda and apologizes to the shocked parents, then goes back to his room again. The next day, Cody apologizes again for dreaming, which the couple try to understand how Cody is doing this. Later that evening, they show Cody old footage of Sean at Christmas, so Cody is seeing how Sean reacts to his Christmas gifts and spending time with his parents. After Cody goes to sleep, we see Sean appear again in the living room, but reacting the same way as the old footage that they had showed Cody. So Mark begins to figure this out, calling out Cody's name instead of Sean's. At that moment, Sean looks at him, and that's when Mark realizes that it is Cody and not Sean. So it seems that when Cody sleeps, he's able to bring Sean, or whatever his dreams are, to life. The scene then switches back to Cody's room, where we can see him sleeping, and then a swarm of moths or butterflies fly down the hall towards his room, opening the door. They take the shape of a humanoid figure, which then whispers into Cody's ear, saying, "I am always with you," to which Cody jolts awake, and the creature and moths are now gone. The following evening, we see that Jessie has put back up Sean's pictures again throughout the house, which Mark isn't happy about. Cody is trying to stay awake again to avoid seeing the Cankerman while Mark and Jessie are downstairs, and Jessie tells Mark that Cody needs to sleep. Mark asks her if this is really about Cody or really about Sean. Then Mark begins pulling the pictures back down from the walls, telling Jessie that ever since they showed Cody that footage of Sean, it's felt wrong and abusive. He feels like they're using Cody as a movie projector to see their son again. But Jessie explains that to her, it's a win-win situation, where Cody sleeps like he's supposed to, and they get to heal again by seeing Sean. However, it seems this pattern is damaging Mark, but apparently is helping Jessie. I personally don't know if it could be healing for someone to see a dead loved one almost every night like that, but Mark then clarifies that he's happy to see Sean again, but reminds her it's not their kid. Jessie then lets the word slip out that she's not going to let Mark take their son away again, which Mark responds that it isn't fair for her to say that. So it seems so far in the story that it's implied Sean drowned in the tub, and Mark must have been home when it happened, but not Jessie. The next morning, when Jessie takes Cody to school, we see a bully break Cody's butterfly jar that he had, and then Cody pushes the kid down. Later on in class, Cody is trying to stay awake since he hasn't been sleeping at home. After class at recess, he asks the teacher if he can stay in her classroom because he doesn't feel good and doesn't want to go to the nurse. So she reluctantly says yes and notices the bully outside the classroom waiting for him. I'm surprised by Cody's scared look. The teacher doesn't try to connect the dots with seeing how the other kid is waiting for him and by their body language that something is wrong. Instead of inquiring further, she tells him that he can rest at his desk and she will be back and leaves the room. I just don't understand how there are teachers out there like that who can clearly tell who's being picked on by whom and do nothing about it. Personally, it's happened to me plenty of times. I've rarely had a teacher step in and help unless things had gotten really bad. Anyway, Cody then falls asleep and we see the bully sneaks into the classroom approaching him. We see a moth pop up and then Sean appears and then finally the canker man in front of the door. One girl that's friends with Cody at school walks into the classroom and sees the canker man too and freezes in fear in the doorway. The canker man then charges at the bully and seems to be eating him possibly, but we don't get a good look. The girl screams and Cody wakes up. The monster and the bully are both gone now. It seems the girl's afraid of Cody and then he gets picked up by Jesse after school. The police are there and Jesse asks what happened, but Cody says a mean kid ran away and it's happened before and that he just wants to go home. Later that night, he stays mostly in his room, telling his parents that he doesn't feel well. Mark then goes to sleep while Jesse stays up waiting for Sean to pop up. But we see that Cody took the last of the coffee to try to stay awake. It seems maybe hours go by, and Cody is reading his usual butterfly book when something makes a noise under the bed. He grabs his flashlight and looks, but nothing is there. So gets back up and sees the ghostly version of the bully screaming at him. So Cody jumps off the bed now, laying on the floor. It switches over to Jessie, who fell asleep on the couch, and Sean wakes her up by creepily repeating, "I'm awake, this can't be happening, I'm awake, this can't be happening," which I think is Cody's self-conscious saying that. My guess is that because of his severe lack of sleep, he's now seeing his dreams and nightmares coming to life. Then we see the bully pull Cody from under the bed. He fights back, repeating he's awake, and Jessie runs in and grabs him, and his dreams disappear again. We also see scratches on his legs, which tells us that his nightmares can physically hurt him. The next day, we see Cody tells Mark that he feels too sick to go to school, so Mark lets it slide and the two go out shopping to buy Cody some new things for his room. Meanwhile, Jessie's at work and asks her doctor to help prescribe Cody some medication so that he can sleep. The doctor tells her that sleep deprivation in children can be seriously damaging, and it's important that he takes his sleep medication. Later on, we see that Mark and Cody arrive back home with the new bedroom supplies, but two officers are at the front door. They ask Cody a few questions about the missing bully at school. But the film then skips to Mark and Cody putting his new bed together. Jessie arrives home from work and they finish up dinner and Cody tells Jessie he's feeling a little better. Mark then brings up that missing kid situation with Jessie, but Cody panics and brings up his new race car bed, quickly changing the subject. So Mark tells Cody that he was getting to that part and continues telling Jessie how this kid at school is now missing. And suddenly Cody blurts out, "How did Sean die?" As the couple look at him and then each other confused, Mark asks Cody to please set the table. It seems like they're both concerned now that Cody knows a lot more than he seems about the missing kid. I'm not sure if at this point they've connected the dots about Cody's dreams affecting the missing child, but I guess we'll see. That night we see that Jessie secretly puts the zolpidem, which is the sleeping pill that the doctor prescribed, into Cody's milk, I think. After Mark and Cody eat, Mark tucks him in and Cody notes how this has been his favorite day so far, and Mark agrees. Mark then tells Cody what happened to Sean, which he says Sean drowned and that him and Jessie couldn't have any more kids after that. Cody then says that he's sorry that he asked, which, by the way, if your kid is having a good day, why did you need to make it all depressing before he goes to bed? Why not end on a happy note? But anyway, Mark reassures Cody that nothing like that will happen to him. After Mark leaves and goes downstairs where Jessie is, she tells him that she doesn't feel like she's a good mom. But Mark reassures her that she's a great mom and that they deserve to have a child again. As they both are about to go to bed now, we see Sean in the living room next to the Christmas tree, and a giant gray present in front of him. As Jessie leans down in front of him and the gift, we see Sean throw up this brown or black goo, and then we see his eyes roll back, and these black butterflies or moths are crawling out of his mouth. Mark runs upstairs and tries waking Cody up, and simultaneously downstairs, the canker man pops out of the gift, and Jessie moves back in fear. Keep in mind, as the audience, we know that forcing Cody to sleep was a really bad idea after seeing what's been happening so far. However, keep in mind that the parents didn't realize the canker man was a real entity. They only saw him bring back peaceful things until now, which was mainly Sean and the butterflies, which is also why I think they haven't told anyone yet about Cody's powers thus far. Maybe they're afraid of losing him. Jessie then runs upstairs into Cody's room, and Mark tells her that Cody won't wake up. It seems that he didn't know that she drugged him. We see the canker man comes upstairs too, towards Cody's room, popping in and out of the air as Mark tries slapping Cody awake. It seems to only work for a few seconds as Cody falls back asleep again. So Jessie slams Cody's door shut, blocking the canker man from getting in, but the monster breaks down the door and grabs Mark, physically absorbing him into its body or skin. The monster then hits Jessie away, and she blacks out. Jessie wakes up to Cody now in front of her, on the phone with police telling them that she won't wake up. The scene now cuts to the officers arriving at the house, and the detective there asks why she drugged Cody. She explains how it was a sleeping pill that was prescribed, and the officer then asks about where her husband currently is. We see Cody being escorted out of the home as Jessie tries to stop them, but of course to the police, it looks like a domestic violence situation, as the sleeping pills she gave him also don't help. She seems to struggle explaining what happened to police, which of course makes sense. Explaining this to anyone would make you sound insane. After the cops leave with Cody, we see Jessie breaking down in Cody's room as she's just lost him, and Mark now as well is trying to process Cody's powers. Keep in mind, I know the story started off a bit slow, but I wanted to mention I felt terrible for the mom at this point in the film, as well as what happened to Mark and Cody. So the movie does a great job, I think, of bringing that slow burn into it and making you empathize for the most part with the characters. The next morning, Jessie is at the CPS parking lot waiting for the CPS woman to show up. This is the same person who introduced the couple to Cody. She now looks furious at Jessie, understandably, as she explains she was questioned by police all night. They both walk inside the building together, as Jessie asks where Cody is, and the woman tells her it's none of her business anymore. And then she asks Jessie where Mark is, and Jessie replies that she doesn't know, and that's why she needs to talk to Cody. But the CPS woman reminds her that that's never going to happen. Jessie clarifies that she needs to know more about Cody and his dreams, and it seems the CPS woman knows what Jessie is talking about, and had heard of this before. But she doesn't say anything to Jessie, and walks over to grab brochures for support groups. It seems her and the police think that Jessie was hit by Mark, and Mark had taken off afterwards. We see Jessie sneaks over to the woman's desk as she's not looking, and steals Cody's files. After she leaves, we see Jessie going through Cody's paperwork, which shows a picture of him as well as his birth certificate. As Jessie flips through, we see the CPS intake information of a woman who went missing, who seems to have fostered Cody prior. We also see information about Whelan Young, the picture showing the same man we saw at the beginning of the movie, holding the gun. It cuts to Jessie tracking down Whelan's location now at a mental hospital, and sits down to talk to him. She explains how she sees in his files him and his wife fostered Cody for 15 months before given to the next foster parents. It looks like the couple who fostered Cody after Whelan also went missing only a year ago, before Jessie and Mark took Cody in. In addition to that, it seems Whelan's wife also went missing. Whelan explains to her that he saw the Kinker Man too, which took his wife, and that once the monster takes them, you can't get that person back unless it comes from Cody's mind. He clarifies by explaining when they first fostered Cody, they would see the butterflies too. But when his wife got sick, that's when the Kinker Man started to appear, and took his wife while they were both sleeping. So Whelan tries to get Cody to bring back his wife in his dreams, which Cody does, but he couldn't remember all the details. Just like how when we try to remember someone's face, we don't remember the details either when it comes to a memory. So whenever Whelan saw his wife again, she would look less and less like her original self. He ended up hating Cody for not remembering her right, and began to snap. That's when, just like the beginning of the movie, we see him pull out the handgun in Cody's room. He realizes Cody is too dangerous to be alive, but he couldn't bring himself to shoot Cody. Whelan explains that if he had ended Cody's life, then Mark would be alive too, along with the previous foster parents. He tries to convince Jessie to kill Cody for him, but Jessie won't do it. She wants to find another way to fix this. She decides she next needs to find his birth mother, and find out what happened to her, and how she died. Meanwhile, while she's searching, we see Cody is back in the foster care center. The next day, it looks like Jessie was able to track down what hospital Cody's birth mom died in. She goes in with her scrubs from work in order to sneak around and take the files that she needs from the hospital. Realizing that no one has come to claim the birth mother's items after all these years, she brings the items back home, and we see the birth mom's old shoes, a blue butterfly plushie, and a notebook or diary. Simultaneously, we see Cody being forced with an injection from CPS, since it's been 2 days since the last time Cody slept. Next, we see Jessie on the phone asking about Cody's information under the guise of working for CPS, because she has his case number and information now. She makes it to the foster care center Cody's at and goes in, surprised to see that no one was there and the doors are unlocked. We see a bunch of moths fly off the stairs and go upwards as Jessie follows them. We see the CPS woman stuck in a nasty cocoon at the top of the stairs in shock as Jessie walks by her, asking where Cody is with no response. She moves on down the hall, passing an open room where she hears Sean's voice call out to her in a whisper. She slowly turns to see a bathroom with a tub. She slowly approaches it, but sees nothing, and while she turns, she hears splashing coming from the tub. As she turns around again, she sees black water in it now, but doesn't see anyone. As she turns to leave, we see the bully's ghost scream out in front of her. She falls back, and above her is Sean, who's now missing his eyes, as he pops out from the tub. He falls back in the water, drowning in front of her. This part was so sad, Jessie having to see her child drowning again, and she turns around for her final time and walks away, probably reminding herself this is Cody's nightmare. It's not real. She goes further down the hall and sees Cody now in another room. On the TV, we see Sean drowning in the tub, and on the wall is the family portrait of Sean, Jessie, and Mark, all without their eyes. Like Cody can't completely remember them in his nightmare. Cody is sitting on the couch and turns to look at Jessie. Then we see a clone of Jessie come up behind her and walk up to Cody without her eyes, just like Sean. She aggressively morphs Cody's face with her hands, and suddenly it's Sean again without his eyes. I'm wondering if this is Cody's representation of how he feels, like that he can't replace Sean. Both Sean and Isla's Jessie both look at real Jessie now, and Isla's Mark pops up out of nowhere, and we see a moth crawl out of his eye. Jessie backs up and quickly slams the door now, back in the hall. As she continues, we see other staff or maybe kids who are also stuck in the cocoons. Then Jessie recalls Cody mentioning that cocoons keep butterflies safe until they are grown up, so maybe these cocoons are actually keeping these people safe and not harming them. There's tons of moths now, as Jessie gets closer to Cody's room. She opens Cody's door and sees he's asleep. The Cankerman pops up behind her and throws her back from the room down the hall. He then screams and charges at her, so Jessie pulls out the blue butterfly plushie that she had brought with her. Suddenly, the Cankerman stops and even the moths around it freeze. He slowly walks closer and looks at the butterfly, and then Jessie reaches out and hugs him. He slowly shrinks down, and we see that as the audience that the Cankerman was Cody. Cody then disappears, and Jessie goes and grabs Cody's actual body from the bed to bring him home. She whispers to Cody to let the other people go as she's leaving the building carrying him. Suddenly, we see the dark moths turn into bright butterflies. His nightmares become a dream again. We see the CPS woman as well as others fall out of the cocoons. She runs down the stairs and tells Jessie to wait as she's holding Cody. Jessie turns around and tells the woman that she's taking Cody home. So the woman just smiles and nods, realizing that Jessie was right about Cody's dreams. We now see Cody's awake the next day, back at home with Jessie. She hands him his mother's journal and explains how his mom, Andrea Morgan, knew that Cody had these powers even at birth. It started off simple, something that looks like a cloud, then a butterfly, and so on. Andrea had gotten sick when Cody was a toddler. Jessie shows Cody his mom's test results, which had the words written, pancreatic cancer, and Cody reads it out loud, saying canker instead. It's at this moment we realize what the Cankerman actually was. When Andrea was about to pass on the hospital bed, Cody was brought in the room to see his mom one last time, her face and hair loss now resembling the monster that appeared in Cody's nightmares. She tells Cody that she is always with him, which is what the Cankerman had been saying to Cody throughout the film. Jessie had realized and explained to Cody that he thinks the Cankerman ate his mom, so he created this monster himself because of his mom's passing, and not understanding what it actually was. Jessie further admits that she used his powers to bring back Sean, and promises never to do it again. That night, Jessie reassures him that he can sleep and doesn't have to be afraid anymore. So Cody asks for a bedtime story, and Jessie starts to tell one of a boy who needed a mom and a mom who needed a son. Cody says that the story sounds like a sad one, but Jessie reassures him it has a happy ending. Cody says it feels like it can't end happy because of all the people that are gone now, but Jessie says no one ever really goes away in our minds or hearts. She says in this story, the bully from school wakes up in his bed, and the foster mom from before comes back to her husband, and last, Mark gets the best gift of all, which is seeing Sean again. Cody asks if that can really happen, and Jessie says that's all up to him and how much stronger his powers will get. So the movie ends with Cody smiling, and with peace of mind, is able to conjure up a butterfly in his hand while still awake. So that's where the movie ends. It started off a bit slow, but I liked it. I think the characters are likable, even if some parts are a little cheesy. If you're confused about some parts of the story too, I'll recap it for you and then go into my thoughts on this one. What actually happened is, when Cody was born, he had the power to conjure up whatever he was dreaming. His mom, aware of these powers, saw it get stronger as he grew. She got cancer, and because Cody was too small to understand what was actually happening, he saw cancer like a monster. It would eat the people that he cared about most. After her passing, the first foster parents, which were Whelan and his wife, took Cody in, and that's when the Cankerman began taking people that he cared about most, which was the wife first. Then, it was another couple after that who also went missing, probably from the Cankerman as well. And then, it was Jesse and Mark who fostered Cody last. We also learned that Jesse and Mark were fostering a child because they couldn't have any more kids in addition to their only child, Sean, passing away. So Sean passing away was pretty vague. We know that he drowned in the bathtub and that Jesse blames Mark for it. Sean was around the same age as Cody, which I thought was strange. How does an 8-year-old drown in a bathtub? We can see at the beginning of the movie how they installed bathtub railings for Cody, so I get that there was no handrails, but still, Sean was tall enough to sit up out of the water. To me, it didn't really make sense, but when I did some research online, it is rare but does occasionally happen that kids even around ages 8 to 10 can still drown by secondhand drowning. Keep in mind, this is also my only guess thus far as to how this could have happened, but maybe Sean fell asleep in the water, and as his face went under, he breathed it in for a few moments before coughing it up, so he suffocated. In my opinion, they really should have been more clear on that explanation as to how Sean drowned in order for the audience to better understand how this could have happened in the small tub, just like the theory that I just gave. It would have made the audience have more clarity on the situation and empathize more for the grieving parents. Anyway, after the parents mourn their child's passing for a time, that's when we see them adopting Cody. I really wanted to mention as a side note, I really like the foreshadowing of what the therapist tells Jessie at the beginning of the film. When she mentions that she can't sleep at night since Sean's passing, he tells her the definition of insomnia. Somnia is Latin for dreams, while insomnia means no dreams. And what else is a child but our dreams? Hopes manifest. So you could say when Jessie can't sleep or doesn't feel awake in a sense, Jessie no longer dreams because she has no child. Without Sean, she has no hope. What's interesting is that Cody's whole power is based on dreams, and Cody is her hopes manifest. Cody's powers can be seen as a metaphor to represent what a child is to a parent. That's why the film is called Before I Wake. So after Jesse and Mark take Cody home, that's when they figure out about his powers, and Jesse starts to take advantage of it to see Sean again. Mark confronts Jesse about this, saying she's using him. I thought this was interesting because Mark is right. It does seem like they're using Cody to see Sean again. But also, Jesse is right that Cody needs to sleep, and if this is what is helping her heal, then this may be a way for her to process her grief. However, we can see how damaging this has been for Mark compared to Jesse. It further shows the complexities of grief and how everyone heals from it differently. Maybe healing is the wrong word, and instead is how to process the loss of a loved one, how to move on without them, but also to never forget them. So regardless, I still think it's unhealthy for Jesse to be seeing Sean like this every evening. She needs to move on in order to process. I think that this scene to me represents how parents can be abusive to their kids, emotionally, but also physically, but they use the excuse of their mistakes as being a worried parent, or protective, like how Jesse was using Cody for selfish reasons, but disguised it as caring. There's also another foreshadowing the therapist mentions later on about what a waking dream is, when he reminds her of how we can achieve REM sleep when we're awake, which is called a waking dream, that sometimes the only way we keep the ghosts of our loved ones alive is through our own subconsciousness, creating these hallucinations, essentially dreaming while awake. We saw this happen when Cody was awake, his nightmare of the bully physically appearing, as well as Sean, showing Cody having a waking dream. Something else I noticed too was near the end of the film, when we see Jessie in the foster care building with the bathtub scene. She walks away while she hears splashing from the tub, hearing Sean drowning, but also didn't turn around. I think at this moment where Jessie is moving from Sean's death and fully focusing on Cody now, she knows that these are just Cody's nightmares, that they don't really exist. We also see how damaging Cody's monster, the Cankerman, becomes, eating or more like absorbing everyone it can grab while Cody is asleep. Now that we know how Cody created the Cankerman in his mind, which was because he saw his mom passing of cancer, you can see how the creature absorbing people is also a metaphor for losing loved ones or fear of it. Cody was so afraid of losing a parent again like his mom, his nightmare became real, which you might also be wondering like I did at the end of the film, when Jessie tells Cody the bedtime story of everyone coming back to life. Was it real? We see scenes of them in the film being brought back, or was this in Cody's mind when Jessie was telling the story? We may never get a full clarification on that from what I've researched, but in my opinion, I don't think they do come back. Jesse tells Cody that these people are alive in our minds and in our hearts. Cody has to come to terms that these people will never come back physically, but they can stay with us mentally and emotionally. A child learning how to process and accept what death is and how to move on. How can you move on if you brought those people back physically? Then the story wouldn't even make sense or have a point. It's supposed to be a reminder to everyone who lost a loved one to not forget about them. The part that lives on is in our dreams, which, like I said before, is why the movie is called Before I Wake. Never forgetting about the people that we care about. Which brings me to my thought process of my painting. I wanted to represent what it feels like trying to recall a childhood memory of a loved one who's passed, remembering the setting but not the details of someone's face. I represented that with the moths that are shown as Cody's nightmares or fears, how he has slowly forgotten what his foster mom looked like when he tried bringing her back because he was too little to remember. I wanted to show the fear of slowly forgetting someone we love and not being able to move on from that. I think it's important to process whatever feelings you're struggling with in order to heal or grow as a person. It's extremely difficult sometimes, and I think that we've all been there. So in a strange way, I think that this movie, while extremely sad, ended on a bittersweet note, or a reminder that while someone is physically gone, they're still alive with us mentally and emotionally. Thanks for watching.